The end of the millennium, 1995 to 2000, was a decade in which many negative occurrences took place, but these events were taken in positive forms and learned from. This decade was a struggle for the nation with a corrupt president, terrorism, a market crash, spreading diseases, and supposed technology defects. There were a few innovations like introducing a different currency and easier ways to travel and talk that tried to keep America and the world thriving. Bill Clinton, the President of the United States, was involved in a scandal that caused impeachment proceedings. The president had allegedly given false statements under oath, says John R. McGeehan. He said he had no sexual relations with the former White House intern Monica Lewinsky. The affairs between the two were unleashed by Kenneth Starr, and Clinton had to reveal the scandal he was involved in. His impeachment process had begun because of his lying ways. The process began in the House of Representatives and then turned to the Senate in 1999, where he was cleared and not taken out of office. Opinion polls on Gallup Politics show his favor ratings dropped from 57 to 39. This showed that citizens questioned the credibility of their president and what else could be hidden if their trusted leader was willing to lie under oath. While the United States was struggling politically, they had some unfriendly guests trying to shake up the nation in a negative manner. In 1996, a pipe bomb exploded at the Summer Olympic Games in Atlanta, Georgia. The attack killed Alice Hawthorne, who was 44 years old, and injured over 100 onlookers. Eric Rudolph, the bomber, was not from a foreign country, but a terrorist from the United States. CNN Law Center states, Rudolph also shed light on his intentions regarding the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta. He called it an opportunity to shame the United States for its legalization of abortion. He said his goal was to knock out Atlanta's power grid and shut down the Olympics. This event is significant to the time period because it changed an international bonding experience to a representation of the darkness of the modern era. It also showed the United States that terrorism was relevant in the country and they needed to find stronger acts of prevention. Not only did the government need to find a way to stop terrorism, they needed to help fix a market collapse. The dot-com bubble was a bubble in the shares of internet companies with .com in their URL. By the 1990s, personal computers were becoming very popular. Jesse Colombo states, from 1996 to 2000, the NASDAQ stock index exploded from 600 to 5,000 points. In 2000, reality started to overcome many. People realized .com was just a bubble. Within months, the NASDAQ stock index crashed from 5,000 to 2,000, Jesse points out. Investors believed that this bubble was invincible and saved the economy. It shaped the United States and the world because millions of people invested money and lost it because the dot-com bubble burst. It was a significant event in the decade because it showed people that they needed to be careful with their money. They never knew what could change in the blink of an eye.
On March 20th, 1996, British Health Secretary Stephen Durrell announced that, in fact, mad cow disease was at the root of a recent outbreak of illness among young British males. For years earlier, Durrell and the government had been insisting that their meat was safe to eat and that there was no connection between mad cow disease and any of the British population diseases.
It is significant to the decade because people feared they would catch the disease and become very ill.
The other giant spread of fear in the decade was the Y2K. The fear was that the computers that every citizen had relied on were going to fail. The public's fear towards the Y2K stemmed from the worry that the two-digit date would not switch to the four digits needed to make 2000, therefore resulting in a system crash affecting all forms of technology. There was also a scare that everyone's luxuries would be eliminated. This would then result in reverting back to the olden times where there was no heat or electricity. People saw the new millennium as the apocalypse and feared that the end of the world was near, stated by VP Calendar. This was significant to the decade because people thought this was the end of humanity and the human race would be eliminated. This event shaped the United States because many people and companies spent money on trying to survive this time. While there were a lot of negative events, there were some positive moments like the introduction of the euro. The euro took the role of the old European currency in 1999, and this time it was introduced to the financial market on a global level. Itching Carpenter states, however, its value quickly began to drop, reaching a low of 0.8252 relative to the US dollar on October 26, 2000. This shaped the United States because it meant the US dollar was appreciating. It shaped European countries because their euro was depreciating. This means that they needed to pay for more American goods, and it was easier for Americans to buy their goods. Not only was the country prosperous through other countries by exchange rates, companies grew by introducing navigation to the public in 2000. GPS systems were initially invented to help assist the military in the United States deliberately weaken signals for the public for nationwide safety rationales. Now turn-by-turn directions and information about the nearest gas station and other points of interest are available on car dashboards, iPhones, and more, says Kimai Husner. This was very important to the decade because it made it much more easier for citizens to get around town. They're not distracted by looking at papers anymore, but rather were granted a system that would tell them where to go. It shaped America and the world because it made it safer for drivers to also help them find the fastest and easiest ways to get around. Another invention that made the lives easier for the public was instant text messaging on phones. In the year 2000, AT&T introduced texting to the United States and was the first carrier in America to offer this addition to mobile services. According to Kemai Husner, in June 2000, cellular carriers reported that the users sent 12.2 million text messages monthly. According to industry group CTIA, the Wireless Association, this was significant to the decade because it reshaped modern communication. It made it much easier to reach friends and family with faster and more efficient responses. Texting shaped the lives of Americans worldwide because it was fast. The end of the millennium was a time of pain for the United States with a few innovations that helped the country grow. There was a scandal in the White House that pushed many Americans to lose trust in the government, a domestic terrorist attack that changed international bondage to a dark resemblance of the modern day. The crash of the dot-com bubble taught people to be careful with their money. Mad cow disease in Britain banned exports of meat, making the citizens fearful of the meat they were eating. Y2K was a scare in which citizens thought it would be the end of the world because computers would lose their functions. While there were so many negative times, there were positive events that kept America's hopes up. The introduction of the euro and its dropping value helped the U.S. stay afloat in the market because the dollar was appreciating, and as GPS became a conventional device, it made it easier and safer for people to drive around. Texting was the most innovative way to communicate with other beings and was the fastest technique. No matter if the event was good or bad, each helped construct the United States to where it is today.
I believe I can touch the sky.